In this video, Terry and I are going to go back over our old video about what's wrong with Games Workshop and now talk about what's right with Games Workshop. I'm here with Teri Litorco, and we're here at AdeptiCon 2018. It's Friday?
It's Friday, yes.
Yeah, I think it's Friday, yeah. And years ago, we did a video on Terry's channel at AdeptiCon as well, and we talked about what was wrong with Games Workshop. This was like, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
This is when they first moved into this location for the event.
I thought we were still in Lombard, weren't we?
No, we recorded on the upper level.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's where we were,
So we made this video, and it was about what's wrong with Games Workshop, because at the time, a lot was wrong.
We were seeing a lot of challenging things, and like it was hard to... It's hard to be in a relationship with Games Workshop, I think, is the best way to describe it.
As fans, as kind of longtime fans, yeah, it was difficult to be like, this is really problematic and it's tough. And now, 2018, it's been a bit of a turnaround.
Right?
Yeah.
It's amazing to see just how, when Games Workshop... This is so typical Games Workshop. When Games Workshop decides to do something, they decide to do it, and they do it well.
Yeah,
and now this is exemplary of that.
It took leadership change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the old CEO, back last time we talked, there was no Facebook. They weren't on Twitter. They ignored the internet. Exactly.
On social media.
Yeah, they just did not pay attention to the internet, and we were kind of like, hey, it's the 2000s or whatever, and you guys should.
2005?
Yeah. No, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it was.
No, it's 2018.
Yes, and 3 years ago we made that video.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
during that video, we were like, "Hey, it's the 2010s.
Yeah,
they should be doing this," and it was just weird. And then now, I mean, they're killing it on Twitch. They're answering questions on Facebook. Last year, do you remember when they were like, "Hey, we're working on an FAQ and we want to show it to everybody on Facebook and get your feedback," and everybody just like jaws were on the floor. I mean, I was just like, "What happened? What did you guys do?" It was amazing, and I think that kind of thing has turned around kind of how they've produced Eighth.
Yes. Yes. I think that when it came to re-engaging, I feel like Eighth was the turning point for them publicly anyways.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously decisions were made beforehand to get everything in place, but when Eighth released, it was a decision to be like, no, we're going to, make some changes about how we engage with our community. We saw it. We all benefited from it. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like, Eighth has been selling so well from what I've been hearing, being told, that it is blowing them away. They have no idea. They had no idea. Like, I've talked to a couple of different people from the Games Workshop, and this was back at Gen Con, and I said, so Eighth is obviously doing pretty well. My local stores are having a hard time keeping it in stock, and he's like, it's surprised us. And I think that's really... I mean, you hope that when you make these big changes that these things happen and things go well, but I think it's even gone beyond what they were expecting.
Well, I mean, I think that, like, we're in a renaissance time, too. So when you look at the landscape of geek, D&D released their numbers for last year. They're growing like crazy.
5th edition is doing crazy
well. Yeah. And those are companies who are embracing social media and engaging and engaging with their community very well. Just like Games Workshop. And I think that how well this engagement has happened, not just for 40K, it's also, buffeted their other games.
Yeah.
And supported their
last year at AdeptiCon, they showed off for the first time Shadespire.
And I gushed to you about it. I was like, it's special. You need to check it out.
But the thing was that was how many months before it actually released? It released in October.
Yeah.
So in March of 2017, they released it, or they first announced it, and you could play it right away on the first night. And it was like kind of crazy that way because they've never done things like that before. Last night at the press thing, was that 2 nights ago? No, 2 nights ago.
Wednesday night.
2 nights ago when they did the press thing, they started talking about Plastic Sisters of Battle, and they're like, oh, and by the way, we're going to show you the process as we go through it, and we're going to ask for feedback on the stuff that they're building. And we're just like, that's not a thing that you guys do. You know what I mean?
You're doing this now? It's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, I think that the global campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, for Age of Sigmar, like, we see the things that I talked about the global campaign I fell in love with 40K with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
in that old video.
Yep,
And I
yep.
said, I wish they would do this again. I wish they would re-engage. I wish they would show that they cared.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a relationship with anyone
Yeah,
or
yeah.
anything, when you have a reciprocal relationship, it's easier to invest. It's easier to be a part of it. It's
Yeah.
easier to
And the old
to be invested,
the
yeah.
old GW. I mean, we talked about it
Yeah.
being like almost a kind of it was a pretty rough relationship, and it was certainly one sided.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that way anymore. I mean, you're seeing how much engagement they're getting on Twitch with Warhammer TV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, during this convention, they've got that setup running most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just constant showing stuff, running stuff, talking about stuff. People are watching from all over the world. That's something that no one would have ever thought of before. Just the fact that they're doing this big press thing and all these people can come and then sit down and they're showing them this is what's coming this year and these are things, and I mean they've never done that before. It used to be a week before we're going to tell you that it's going to come, which at that point the rumor sites all knew about, sort of. But are there even rumor sites anymore?
like there's no scooping Games Workshop anymore.
Right, because
There's
they
no
scoop
scooping.
themselves.
Yeah,
the Warhammer community website is showing you, oh hey, but here's a bunch of new stuff we're talking about.
Instead of going to those scoop sites where they're doing
Yep.
rumor mills and they're,
Yep.
I won't say that sometimes there are problematic elements of running on that cycle.
Certainly.
But by owning that, there's one site to go to if you want to know what's new, what's exciting, what I should be looking forward to.
Yeah.
And it's not just like for me as a gamer, it's great for me to know, hey, Daughters of Cain coming out, Sea Elves for Age of Sigmar coming out. I can save that money. I can be ready. I can know to talk to my local game store or
Get them to
if I don't have
pre-order
a-
to make
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And be ready on that
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a week before, you're like, surprise!
Yeah.
And my game store didn't know to order enough.
And the people
I
like-
don't have it. And
Yeah.
and then that relationship gets tense and it affects my ability to be in the hobby.
Right, yeah, in that particular version of the hobby.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people, I think, that started to move to different companies and do different things, while things were all sort of weird with them. And now over the last 2 years, it's been kind of surprising. And I think that, I feel like some of the other companies are really either need to take note or kind of step up their game, because I don't want to say Games Workshop is eating their lunch, but,
Competition. So there's a dual kind of there's kind of a two-headed beast you have, though,
Sure.
right? Like on one hand, a rising tide floats all boats, right?
Which I've said before in a couple of videos, saying,
course.
hey, this whole thing is going to help everybody.
Of course, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing that too, right? So there are games that have been around for decades that are seeing that resurgence as well. So it's, people are interested in minis, but don't necessarily want to invest in a huge number of minis. There are other games for
Yeah.
that. So one example I think of is Cool Mini or Not Stark Age, which has seen this renaissance
Up
in
and down,
engagement.
up and down over years,
Yeah,
but
for years.
again,
but
up.
now it's up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also have competition, right?
Now,
So
yeah.
there's this with Games Workshop upping their game, you have to do something remarkable to earn
Yeah.
the dollars of gamers.
Well, the last time that we talked, they didn't really have anything skirmish related. Everything that they were doing was basically just either fantasy or it was 40K, and that's very difficult to get into. And we were like, there's all these other skirmish things happening, and we've got to make sure we understand that, and and they need to understand that. I think they understand it now in spades between Age of Sigmar Skirmish, Necromunda, Shadow War Armageddon,
Kill Team
new announcement, which is like a totally different game than the old Kill Teams, but it's another skirmish thing. I think that they've really decided that they need to focus on getting new people into the hobby, whereas before they didn't seem to care, and now they've completely come around.
It felt like you had to be the kind of consumer who would buy that one-click bundle for how many thousands of dollars to be the person who could take advantage of that relationship, and for Games Workshop to want you to be a part of their community. And now it's like no, it doesn't matter like your level of investment, and it's not just like dollar level investment, it's just my personal level of investment, my ability to play games every week. It like, what does that look like? There's something for everyone, and I think part of the move to skirmish is interesting to me, because I'm a skirmish gamer at heart. I don't have the time anymore to like paint full armies. I don't have the time to dedicate 3 hours for a single session of a game.
Yeah.
And seeing them engage with me on games like Shadespire
Yeah.
or a new version of Kill Team, that to me is really exciting because it means I can be a part of this narrative without having to commit to that same extent that you need to.
And I think they've even dialed it back in their big games as well too, because now like Age of Sigmar, I have a 1,000-point Age of Sigmar army that is maybe 21 figures. And I've just built, and I'm just going to start painting it after I get back from AdeptiCon. I've got a Primaris Marine army that is 2,000 points, and it's, I think, 30 figures, maybe 32. There's only one vehicle. There's a couple of, I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 dreadnoughts, and then everything else is pretty much troops, but it's not nearly as many troops as it used to be. Now, again, Guard is still the Guard, and Tyranids are still Tyranids, and that kind of stuff.
That's the flavor of those factions,
But
right?
I think now you can go, like, I remember trying to build a 1,500-point army back in 5th edition, and it was a lot of models,
My 1,500-point Tau army was like 80 models.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It's a lot of
It's very daunting.
Time. It's very daunting,
Yeah,
and it's very... for people who are coming into this hobby, they can walk into a Games Workshop in a mall or somewhere now, and they don't have to feel like if you want to play on Veterans Night, you need everything.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that is really a beautiful point of accessibility. And I think, too, there's this responsiveness that's happened with the market as well. Like Games Workshop is obviously responding to the market, not just the community. They're not, Games Workshop is a business. They're not going to do things altruistically. They're going to do things for
pretty much all big businesses can't,
right? And when you have competitors out there now, like Fantasy Flight doing Star Wars Legion,
right? Yeah,
and that was going to happen when that relationship.
Between those two companies,
when that relationship was dissolved. And Fantasy Flight had all this X-Wing money they were sitting on, and the Star Wars license. It was a matter of time where they're looking at what Games Workshop was doing, saying they're making money doing this. Surely we can do something.
It'll be interesting to see what Legion does, and it'll be interesting to see how it affects Games Workshop. I honestly think that playing Shadespire and looking at the new organized play kit that they put out, I think that Games Workshop is also looking at companies like Flay. I mean, because that new...
They're stealing from each other. And
that
it's
organized play
us.
thing has got like those special alternate art cards that you can use in your Shadespire. And I'm like, wow, those look really kind of like alternate art cards that you get in X-Wing if you play in a tournament. And so, I think that's going to be... I think it's very interesting because you're right. When all the big companies sort of fight and try to work against each other, we generally get the benefit.
We benefit. And we have choice. And I think that's the other thing. One of the things that I have been so excited to see out of Games Workshop is their openness to be like, hey, not only are we doing all these things to please these people we've had relationships with 15 years now, we knew you played, in the early editions. We want to, bring you back into the fold, or we want to re-engage you. We want to show you new things. We're going to make Plastic Sisters of Battle, so you guys out there carrying those middle cases of models, you can come back into the fold. It's the same kind of like, Blood Bowl, Necromunda, they're bringing those old gamers back. But also, like, they're opening up their audience to this new audience. Like, when they acknowledge publicly on their social media, diversity is a thing in our model range. We recognize that. We want to encourage that. When Duncan does a tutorial on how to paint visibly ethnic skin tones, like, that's a big thing for me personally, obviously, because I want to see myself in those games.
Absolutely.
But also because I want to be able to encourage my friends to get into these games, and it's my daughter, where she comes in and she says, "We're the girls." And I can go, there's girls here now. There's girls here now. You can bring them into the fold, because they can see themselves in those games.
I think they're becoming finally kind of a modern company, and I think that that's kind of important. So
well, and
definitely.
they're doing it given the production cycles. They're doing it rapidly. Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the model cycle and the production cycle, they admitted it's 2 years approximately. And that seems totally... You look at any Kickstarter that goes live.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
They've got all the art, they've got all the prints, they're ready to print when they push that Kickstarter live, and still fulfillment is another 8 to 12 to 14 months.
Exactly.
They have everything ready already.
Yeah.
So what's all that work before that look like? Well, you're doing months of work ahead of time. So 2 years seems like it's a pretty quick cycle, given that they also
especially
own their
with how
production.
especially with how much effort they put into their stuff. I
absolutely.
mean, probably some of the most in the industry. Yeah, no, I think I honestly believe that it's a great time to be a wargamer. It's a great time to be also a Games Workshop wargamer if you're interested in that kind of stuff, which a lot of people obviously are. It's a great time to get into it. It's a great time to come back to it. I've been seeing people in the shop who I haven't seen in years, and they're back playing. And I think that all of this has been super successful on their part.
My husband, who we made a video with
Right,
before.
last year.
So last year, when we came out of the studio preview, we had played Shadespire. I made a video on my channel saying, well, Nathan, Games Workshop's getting our money again. And he had sworn, like, he was like, I broke up with them. We're never,
Right.
you know, they are persona non grata in our lives. And he came out of that studio preview, like, from Shadespire. He's like, I think if the game is good, we're going to make it a thing.
Yeah.
We made it a thing. We played the Grand Clash.
You both guys played in the big Grand Clash last night.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
It was a great experience.
It was 130 people.
Holy smokes, it was insane, the numbers. And we came out of the studio preview. He's like, CLs, Games Workshop, take my money. Like, here we go, let's do it. And
I was hoping for Fishman. I've said that a bunch of different times.
Did you see the turtles?
I wanted Fishman. Yeah, that's what I wanted. But beyond the Fishman issue, I think that everything they've been doing has been really knocking it out of the park. And I think that it behooved us to make a video to say, oh, here's what's right, and to kind of try to explain that, because I think that it's also, again, like I said, if you're getting new into the hobby, which is kind of the focus of my channel, getting new into the hobby is really something that's important, because being able to find a game that's widely played by a competent company, and when you go into the shop, A, they'll probably have it in stock, and B, there'll be other people there playing, and being able to get in on a small little thing like Shadespire's like $60.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great thing, and I think it's going to bring more people into the game.
And I think that's so many of us came into Games Workshop at a younger age, where we walked into a mall store and just saw it and fell in love with it. I feel like people can experience that again.
Yeah, kids can experience it again.
Kids can experience it again. And that to me means so much, right? Like the generation of I don't want to say this, beardy old gamers, but like, let's be honest here.
I know what you mean.
When I can go, when I played in 3rd edition.
Yeah, exactly.
There's these things called trial assault rules.
Right.
That is an experience now that people are having again.
Yeah.
And people are going to be saying, I bought that first Shadespire core set, and that's a core game now. So that as a core game means it'll be constantly supported. And they announced that not only did it exceed their expectations at the studio preview, that they'll be continuing to support it for a long term. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be great, and I'm really glad that they were able to. I mean, I've been so stunned just in the last 18 months about how the changes have been. It's been great. So I'm glad that you were able to come over, and we were able to get together and make a video and kind of follow up our old video. It's not an apology; it's an appreciation. We're not apologizing to them because things were bad then.
Yeah.
But now
it's an acknowledgement.
Exactly. Positive reinforcement. They got to know that they're making us happy.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, so that's pretty much our take on what we used to make a take on back a couple of years ago. And I want to thank Teri, and you should go check out her channel. I'll link it in the description below. And, I'm hoping that you're, at the very least, enjoying some sort of Games Workshop game if you're into that kind of thing. If you're not, that's cool too. But understand, I think it's helping everybody.
Yeah, you'll never touch plastic that is like Games Workshop plastic.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it.
And it makes everybody have to work a little bit harder.
Yes.